Welcome to the Invisible Wheelchair Podcast. I'm Donald Grodoff. I'm with Focus Healthy Family, Family OCD, and of course, the Invisible Wheelchair Podcast. Today, I'm really doing an off-the-cuff podcast for you. I recently began doing a series of talks with Kristen Clark, who does Kristen Clark Coaching, and she is a college prep coach. You know, if you are getting ready to go into that whole college thing with your kids, then she would be the one to really contact. She can help you get ready for it, know what angles to take, all of that. And you can check her out at kristenclark.com. That's KristenClark.com. And in this series that we began, we've been talking about stress around college, and we kind of breaking it into parts. And I wanted to bring these up here because this, of course, is what we talk about in the Invisible Wheelchair Podcast is stress and anxiety. And when it comes to college, and I've worked with teens, I've worked with parents that are going through this process, and I look at it as a three-part kind of process in a way. It's the before, when you're looking up colleges, visiting them, deciding on all of that, and the stress that goes around that, the pressures, the worries, the fears, all of that. And then there's the part where you transition, in that transitional period of whether it's moving away or just getting everything ready once you've been accepted and going to a school, whether it's local or you're moving away. Both have different things around them in that transitional time. And then the third part, to me, once you're settled in, you've transferred there, moved there, whatever, it's then acclimating to the life, a different life in college. In this series, we're kind of breaking it down into those parts, talking about the different places where stress and anxiety come in, and then how to get around that and how to work through that. And again, I talk about the EFT, which is the tapping stuff I do. And then Kristen and I talk about, how we can find different ways outside of that. We talk about that in the interviews, and I wanted to present that here. And remember, if you are in that place as a parent and as a teen that are getting ready for college, I can help you learn to manage that, learn techniques that you can do while you're there for yourself to help you do that. So enough about that. Let's get to that interview. This is part 3.
Wanted to talk about today is parent stress. So for the parents that your child is in college, a lot of times this can be really stressful for us. Even though your kid's going off, they're excited, they're entering into a new life, our life changes too. So we wanted to talk a little bit about that and how we can help parents stress less during this time. So Don, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good, Kristen. Thank you. I appreciate doing this. I think this is great.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about this. So I've got my little notes here. So we've got parents that either they're new to empty nesting or they have their oldest child that's heading off to college, and they're just feeling a little out of sorts. So How can we help them?
Well, the first, I guess, you and I talked about is we're dealing with mindset, in a way, because you've put, as a parent, you put all your attention towards that child and not as much towards yourself during these years of them raising them. And now they're out of the picture. And so it's time to turn the attention to yourself. And like I said, we talk about a lot about mindset, about how you think about things now, because you're going to have to start finding your own passion, what you like to do, so you can kind of get your mind into something different that's suited for yourself. It's also kind of turning into yourself again. So, quick review. Last time we kind of talked about things that can be done to help that mindset. Like journaling, meditation. I do the EFT tapping, which I'd be happy to show anybody to help bring down stress.
Mhm.
And then, of course, exercise and eating and making sure you're getting some exercise. Because again, we put all our attention towards our kids a lot of times. We tend to forget about ourselves. So it's time to kind of turn that around. Now, you may still have other kids at home. So you do have to put some attention to them too. But here again, I think it's still a time where you got to kind of turn to yourself some.
And I will tell you this, those other kids may not want extra attention. So,
Well, yeah,
they may be happier if you do put some of that energy into yourself as well and not put extra focus on them. Because we know too, as teenagers, kids are pulling away from us right now.
yeah.
And that's okay. And you brought up when we were talking before this that, kids need to start doing things on their own, and parents need to move into that mindset that I need to set them up for success now. So how can we focus maybe some attention on that?
Well, because we have these different fears that come up. We have the fear of their safety. Are they going to be okay? Especially if they've moved away. I my my oldest moved away about a year and a half ago, and it's just very different. They're not there where you can
Mhm.
watch them, where you know what they're doing, or you can keep a better eye on them. So it's got to, and the part of the mindset thing is getting the idea that, I hopefully as a parent, we've given them all the ground rules, the things they need, the tools they need for their life. Now it's kind of letting it go and letting them use those tools, making mistakes. You
Mhm.
know, One thing, it's interesting about it, and this kind of goes off a little bit, but it's a child's mind. As something I learned a couple of years ago, um, that a child's mind in teen years goes from the logical mind to the emotional mind, so that they take risk because they have to take risks to grow. So as a parent, to understand that they're not just going to they're going to do things that we think are stupid, or that they shouldn't take that risk, but they really need to take some risks. They need to take some leaps out of the box to grow, and we have to let them.
Right. And we've talked also about, as a parent, moving into that consulting role where it's really more about asking questions and not telling them what to do or telling them they were wrong. It's asking questions. How'd that work out for you? How would have you done it differently?
Yeah, and taking it slow with the questions. You don't want to do it in a bombardment way,
Mhm.
and that's something that it's hard for a parent, because you want to find out about, how their grades are, how you don't need to do that for yourself. That's something they need to be able to just know you're the ear for them. And so it's changing our mindset as far as a parent goes, is getting onto the idea of this is going to sound really out there, but getting into yourself and start listening to what your needs are, because that's not easy, because we've given up a lot of those needs to the kids. They come
It's
first.
not easy, but Don, to your point, it's something that really we should be doing all the time, not just when they
Yeah.
go off to college, but now you have extra time. So if you haven't been doing it, I think too, it's just time for you to say it's okay.
Well, and something that a lot of people don't think about is there's actually grief that goes on with this. Now, it may not, that sounds
Mhm.
weird, because it should be joyous. They're going off to college. They're moving to a better place. All that kind of stuff. But in a way, any change like this, any transition, is grief, and you really got to, one, accept that you're going to feel some of that. Both for the parent and the child. But we're talking right now about parents. There can be a lot of grief to it, because it's a transition. And then, the other mind thought that goes on with parents is, oh my gosh, I'm getting older. The kids are getting older. I'm getting old, and so that starts playing in. So all of that has to be dealt with. And you have to kind of work through that and get to a different thought process with that, because now's your chance as a parent to start expanding your own life, and doing some of the things you want to do,
Well,
taking those
thought.
cruises.
I love that thought of kind of working through the grief. of having that child go away and knowing life is never going to be the same.
Yeah.
So, Don, how would you suggest that a parent works through that grief?
Well, first it's accepting that it is. That's the toughest part I think for anybody is we tend, and that's when I'm working with my clients and all, one of the things I talk about is acceptance of thoughts. To not try to fight a thought, not try to fight. Oh, I'm not sad. I'm not grieving. And the grieving probably is not the best word to use because we don't really think about it that way. But I'm sad. Things are changed. I'm not used to this.
Mhm.
Accept those feelings and allow them instead of fighting them. And I'll just buck up and I'll go jog, or something like that. Well, that's great. I'm not against exercise, but accept the thought and then just kind of deal with it. It's okay to have those thoughts. Be sad, be worried, because if you can accept it, then you can slowly kind of change the around that thought. You can change it how it hits you and how it affects you.
Right. And you also had brought up before journaling, as a way to deal with working through those emotions.
Yeah, writing it down, actually, I've learned that writing locks ideas into brain. It can really lock things in, and so you tend to work through them that way.
Mhm.
And I think that's a good way. And just say it like it is. Write it out as is. Don't try to buffalo it. Don't try to, you know, afraid that somebody's going to find your journal someday and you cussed in it. Oh, no, just say what's really going on for you. It's the only way to really get. 'Cause I always say, don't lie to your brain and say, I'm not sad or I'm not. You are, and it's okay. Let's just take some time to be sad for a few minutes or however long you want. Give yourself that time and then work your way out of it.
And I can give some hope to parents because I've got two that are in college. So I am in full on empty nester mode, except for when they come back, which I know they do that. But now when they come back with us for a couple weeks at a time, by the time they leave, we're kind of ready to see them go.
You get used to it, Yeah, you get
You
used to
get
having
used
it.
to it. And it does become your new normal and it does feel okay after a while and everything works out.
I mean, you can always get a dog too, or something like that. But yeah, I mean, I still have two at home, so I'm not at the empty nester place, but I can still feel the emptiness of that one being gone, not being around, and they come around. They don't go. They're not moved away. They as far as college, they're going here in town, so we see them quite frequently. But
Well, and quite frankly, there is a lot of joy in seeing them spread their wings and try new things. And, really being a part of that is kind of cool. So I think you're giving up some things, but you're also getting things in return.
oh yeah, I mean, to watch, to see my oldest, blossom out and do well in what he's doing is it gives a lot to the heart for here too. And yeah, so I think it's this process of letting go, and that's such a cliche-ish way. Oh, letting go, but it really is true of getting into yourself and starting to take care of yourself, do some self-care stuff, because finances are probably popping in there with thoughts of, oh, I got to pay for this. Stay tuned for more to come. That concludes this podcast. Please leave me a comment or question below. That gives me good direction where to go on future podcasts. I would love to hear your invisible wheelchair stories if you're willing to share it. If you would, go to invisiblewheelchair.com and click on Tell Your Story. I want to remind you that OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, is treatable, and I can help you get past OCD. So if you have heard this podcast and others, and you feel like you need further assistance and would like to spend some time with me working through any issues you have, then feel free to book a session at focusedhealthyfamily.com or familyocd.com, or you can call me at 704-562-1630. I also offer $85 off initial discovery session if you mention that you heard it on this podcast. Finally, Don't forget that there is a tapping recording that coincides with this podcast you may want to take advantage of. I hope you have enjoyed this podcast and will join me for the next one. Remember to keep tapping, talking, and transcending your life to new heights. Thank you, and have a great day.